Hey everybody, I'm back with a quick video here. This is a reaction video to the new trailer from the Peter Jackson film, Get Back. Now, I wasn't going to do a reaction video to this. I know many have already been done, but I got some requests for it, and a couple things did occur to me. So I thought, well, let's just throw this out to the audience, see what you guys think. Now, I just got done watching it for the umpteenth time. I just am loving it. And one of the things that is clear is that Jackson is putting together a linear story here. And he's setting it up where there's all these conflicts, and then it ends with this big, I guess, obviously the concert on the rooftop. So within this trailer, which is only about 3 minutes, there are a lot of things that I'm glad they put in there, which tells us this is not going to be a whitewash or some kind of Disneyfication that a lot of people have been predicting. So here are a couple of things that tell me that. First of all, we hear George Harrison talk about, he asks, hey, are you recording our conversations? Now, Michael Lindsay Hogg did have microphones and cameras hidden, and he even had phones bugged. So I'm guessing we might get some audio in this film that doesn't have video to go along with it, but I don't know. But the fact that they didn't always know that they were being recorded, I think maybe gives it some more credibility, gives it some more reality. Some people had suggested that because they knew they were being filmed, that they were on their better behavior. Mind you, those are the same people who said it was a wholly negative experience, so I don't know. That's a bit of a contradiction there. So one of the things they also talk about in the trailer is that, they've got 3 weeks to create a whole new album. So they're setting up the conflict here. And I love the part where George asks John Hole, how many songs have we got done? He's like, none. He's like, none? What do you mean none? And so there's more conflict in here. I would say that what we're seeing in this trailer is warts and all. That seems to be what they're showing us. One of the things that Paul also says, they're a little nervous about doing this show. He says, I think we've gotten kind of shy. So all that is the backdrop. We also see some footage of them working on the song Something, which I am so glad there's video of this because I didn't know if there was or not. And it's so nice to see one of George's songs getting some support, which goes contrary to the narrative we've always heard. And we know that happened in both this song and in All Things Must Pass. I did extensive videos on both of those songs. And in both those cases, at least, George's songs were worked on quite heavily. Moving along here, we also see that the live dates that were originally on the calendar got canceled because of George being gone. Now, George, obviously, that part is not being swept under the rug. They're going to be integrating that into the movie, obviously, because he was gone for roughly, they shut down for about 6 days, I think, because of his absence, and had private meetings to get him back. So that will be in there. Obviously Yoko Ono is all over the place in the film, in the background, and some of the other Beatles' wives and girlfriends as well. You've got other people coming and going, Peter Sellers, and I think some of that will be in there as well. So there's a lot going on here. I think one of the other things that's kind of funny is they didn't lose their sense of humor, where there's a part where John says, well, grinding to a halt, I think it's taking off, so kind of joking with the situation that they have there where things were maybe not taking off, but yet they stuck with it and they made something out of it. So I wanted to give you that background because I've done about 8 or 9 videos on this project so far, diving deep into the dialogue, using the exact primary sources to tell us more that we hadn't heard before. And I had gotten several comments on this channel here that I want to share with you. Just to give you an example of what Peter Jackson and Apple will be up against with this idea of revisionism. So here's one. The first one I'm going to share with you here is goes like this. If you base your narrative solely on evidence, in this case sound recordings, you miss 2 things. 1, what happened when they were not recorded? Maybe those arguments were taking place then. 2, how they felt even though they were cooperating in the studio. So here you've got, this is what you, I guess, call a straw man argument. This doesn't refute any of the evidence that I brought forward. I guess you could say what this guy said about the negative narrative we always heard. Maybe they were having good conversations and happy times outside the time they were being filmed. Maybe we don't, how did they really feel? We don't know. How much can the camera capture? But these are the kind of non-arguments. It's based on non-evidence. And they try to bring this up to refute hard evidence. I find that rather silly. The last thing this person says here, one more thing. There must have been tensions and arguments because they broke up. Well, there's probably tensions and arguments all the way back to Please Please Me. I guess you could say that about any album. So, I mean, you see the people try to have a cause and effect here. And when certain things are set up for them and make it real easy for them, that's where they go. They don't use any, they don't want to hear any other evidence as well. This person maybe does, maybe doesn't. This is an older comment, so we'll see if this person has the same feeling after seeing the Peter Jackson film. Next one. Matt, in all respect, the Beatles could no longer leave their troubles at the door because of John's unreasonable insistence on having his pariah mum, Yoko Ono, in the studio. It was obvious they were both smacked out on heroin. John was a shell of his former self, Lennon was disheveled, skinny, and sometimes looked like he hadn't bathed. Peter Jackson cannot hide the misery of that project. We'll see how good Jackson really is. The only positive moment was when George brought Billy Preston in, whom they rarely filmed whilst performing with the Beatles. Well, if that's the only positive moment, I don't know what this person was looking at. This person made this comment after the original sneak preview. So, again, this is what some of the historians are up against, this kind of bias. Here's another. They've always said Macca tries to rewrite history. This may be his final attempt at doing so. Here we got another one. There's something missing in this analysis, meaning my video. It's an assumption that 96 hours of film can tell us how positive or negative the group interaction was. Yeah, I guess but 96 hours is kind of a lot of evidence, wouldn't you agree? It can, but only to a degree. Well, that's true. We don't know what happened off camera. No, we don't. The preview for the film shows a lot of clowning around. Fun, but makes me wonder how balanced it will be. Seems to be a need to dispel a gloomy Let It Be film. I'd rather the focus be on the group, playing music, the interpersonal ups and downs added to provide a little context. If it's a film mainly about personalities, I will be disappointed. Well, I mean, isn't this about personalities and how they make a film? It's just not... Well, this guy would really love the 8 Days a Week Ron Howard film, I guess, because that's just the Beatles touring. We didn't get any behind-the-scenes stuff on that. So there's stuff out there for people like this. Cotton candy stuff. All right. Here we have another. I agree that Lennon had a lot of revisionist proclamations. He was, for better or worse, telling the interviewer where his head was at that moment. And I don't care what other people say or write. I'm most interested in the horse's mouth, whether or not you consider it unreliable. Okay. Interesting way to go through life. And yeah, of course, the more documentary books allow you to calibrate and stitch together the truth. So this person, here's an example of somebody taking John Lennon's word, of which John Lennon had refuted much of that and recanted it. No. He wants just that thing. He wants to put all his eggs in that basket. He doesn't want anything else, because that would be calibrating and stitching together truth. Okay. But you can see here the degree to some people will go to keep their little story the way they want it. Another here. Some serious revisionist theory, Paul apologist and strawman hocus pocus going on here. I guess he means me. Does anybody really believe that the friction between Paul and George was due to this one incident? No. Or doubt that George was seriously unhappy with his status in the band? No. Was Paul trying to be diplomatic? Yes, but that doesn't change the long-time narrative of a control freak who was unaccepting of George's contributions. And his trying to justify this in session, I think he means in this session, doesn't make him any less guilty. So anyway, this guy is calling Paul a control freak here. Obviously, we can see where his bias is. He finishes by saying, Ringo, in a moment of rare candor, put it best. Paul got a bit like, I wrote the song, I want it this way. Where before it was, I wrote the song, give me what you can give me. This guy, actually George said that, but I'm not going to split hairs with you. But this guy, you can see the level of the depth of the knowledge of these people with these kind of opinions of Peter Jackson's film, which, by the way, they have not seen yet. I think it's really hilarious that people have to cling so hard to an old narrative and are so unaccepting of new evidence. You heard him call it revisionist, stitched together. There's no way Peter Jackson can make this seem happy, things like that. I have the new book here. The Get Back book. I almost didn't pick this up. I'm so glad I did. This book, it's got so many new photos I've never seen before. One of the other things that these revisionist people keep harping on, I believe it was in the sneak preview, there was maybe an F-bomb that was taken out. Paul had profanity. I think it was in that. So that led people to say, oh, Disney cleaned up, censorship. But in this book, which has even more transcription of the dialogue, all that is kept in here. So I would consider this whole project to be, it's got multi-parts to it. This book would be one. We have the 6-hour series, the film by Peter Jackson, is another part. We have the remix album that comes in with several extras in it, extra outtakes and whatnot. The Glyn Johns mix is included in that. We also have the DVD set and Blu-ray set that will probably come out after this Disney Plus thing gets released. I'm assuming they may have some extras, but that'll be another part to it. And then hopefully we're going to get a re-release of the original film Let It Be from 1970. I've heard that I've heard that maybe, I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but the totality of all these parts together give us a hell of a lot more information than we had before this was released. So if people like this want to just cherry pick, because that's what it'll be now, cherry picking. There's no excuses anymore. There's all kinds of information to draw upon, and to balance it out gives a better telling of the events. And so I'm really excited for this. I think Peter Jackson, it feels to me like they're going to over-deliver on this film. I mean, I was expecting 2 hours in the theater originally, and I was really excited to have the theater experience. But the 6-part thing, I think they just had too much here to leave on the cutting room floor, and they're giving us more. This feels like over-delivering, but I'm going to refrain from saying anything more about it until I see the actual piece. And until then, I'm just going to enjoy the ride. So let's do that together, and I'll be back with some more analysis on this film and the projects that go along with it here on Pop Goes the 60s.